What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
When I'm lonely in the dark, I know you are with me, yeah. Don't you see that I need you so much? Don't you see that I love you so much? Oh na 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 na, oh na 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 na, darling, I need your love. Oh na 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 na, oh na 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 na, darling, I need your love.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow shadow turns to sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Boxes, boxes, I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it, stop it. Quitting was never an option. Exhausted, exhausted. This passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it.
I had to switch up the flow, show you the way that it go. God is good, but his life is hard. But it gets better when you grind smart. I'm just really trying to leave a mark. We tired of being who they say we are. That's the baton, we gon' take it far.
I was the real, we don't fake it all.
Tired of 9 to 5, just making enough to survive. Only living on the weekends. You really thinking that's why I'm alive? Busting out the scenes, time to live my dreams.
Hot mic. Here we are, everybody, for Around the Halo, episode number 11. Thank you for joining us. I will be your host, Bearded McMagic, and I have with me, of course, Bearded Marco, Joel Stepanek at Chasing Humility, Bearded Blevins, and Bridget at Max Studios UST. Thank you for joining us. Everyone, I think we should do quick intros because we haven't seen each other in a while, and then we have a fun-packed little episode for you today. So around the Halo, Marco, quick update: travels, baby, life in general.
Life is good. I'm still the CFO for now of Little Flower Media
Until your shareholders revolt.
Until the shareholders revolt, and John kills me in my sleep. Sorry, we don't advocate for violence on this channel. Just got back from Canada. I caught 2 halibut and a king salmon. That was a lot of fun.
Would you say you caught a halibut?
No. Moving on. But yeah, so that was great. Baby's doing good. Zelly's amazing. Big news is that she can hear, which is great.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, we found that out this morning. So she had to do a 4-hour 4-hour test under anesthesia today. And so her ears are just blocked right now because of her cleft palate. So if I sing really loud in the bathroom, she can hear me. So John, she can't mute me.
I was just gonna make a mute joke about your singing. Well done.
Nice. Maybe later she'll have the ability to mute you. Maybe the tech will get there when the world is super meta. Joel, how's it going, my friend?
It's going just dandy. Just dandy.
Fine and dandy.
Fine and dandy.
Are you prepared to burst into flames in Arizona?
No, everybody thinks it's so hot here. It really isn't. I'm telling you, there are other places in the country right now where it is so much worse. Like it was 107 here today, no humidity. Actually, there's some cloud cover right now. And when it's cloudy, it's just not that bad. Don't believe the hype. If it's 98 and humid somewhere, I ain't there. That's way worse.
Okay, that's fair.
Bridget's got it worse in Houston.
If you go out at night, you need to take a sweatshirt. That's what you're saying, like just in case.
I mean, you might.
She's got that Nashville. She actually lives in Nashville. And she's got that. Nashville
that's
humidity.
right. The UST thing threw me up. Yeah, Nashville. That's even worse. Well, not worse.
I wore a sweatshirt outside today. I'm good. I was like, this is great.
And
Just
your
wait
hugs.
until the mosquitoes come.
Jonathan, how goes it? Quick update.
Update. Brother was in town this past week, so it was really good to get a lot of quality family time. But also, I've been streaming a lot too, so I'm running on a few hours of sleep. Looking forward to that later. Looking forward to the show a ton. And I think Joel is a little. I think he's a little crazy when it comes to the weather thing. It's pretty bad in Arizona. When you can cook a steak in your car because it gets up to 225 if it's in the sun.
Why would you do that? Like, and again, why would you do that in your car?
If it's an option, then you shouldn't live there.
No, I think that every place has its thing.
Joel, that's a content idea.
I will not accept criticism.
Joel, make a video of cooking your lunch inside
Do
your
it.
car. Bridget, how goes it?
I'm doing fine and dandy as well. I'm so excited for tonight. It's going to be fun.
Fantastic. That's good news.
Can I just ask where Joel is? Is that a new studio?
He had that
got a new
last time.
background.
Yeah, he put up
Yeah,
a
didn't you notice?
background last time. Yeah.
I thought you were like at a hotel last time or something. I like it.
No.
It's kind of cool. And Bridget, that's not real.
That's
I
a
know.
real plant. She got hers
Don't
in
judge
daily.
me. I hate Zoom backgrounds, but you do not want to see what's going on. So if I like short out,
Amazing.
it's because I'm being super inauthentic. And the only thing cool behind me is my icon of John the Baptist and my book that Dave Grohl wrote. So everything else is a hot mess.
Sweet.
So you don't want to see what's back there.
All right. Well, let's fire up this episode. Topic number 1. Qatar bans during the World Cup. So it came out recently. I shouldn't say recently. This is kind of people are going to return tickets when they didn't do their research. But during the World Cup, Qatar plans to ban sex and alcohol, particularly sex of unmarried people. I guess if you're married and you get tickets together, then that's totally okay. But alcohol and promiscuous behavior with a chance of up to 7 years of jail time. So this one is particularly interesting because while I understand that you have to abide by the laws of the nation that you are in, this one seems incredibly difficult to enforce without a variety of privacy issues that goes along with it. We're going to go around the Halo in the same order that we were introduced. So Marco, start us off.
Well, I've got some thoughts.
I bet you do.
I've got some thoughts. It's kind of like, okay, great. We see your intent and that's good, right? But, we're lacking on the execution, right? I have a great quote I'm going to read from St. Thomas Aquinas. It's very short, so bear with me. Human laws do not forbid all vices from which the virtuous abstain, but only the more grievous vices from which it is possible for the majority to abstain, and chiefly those that are to the hurt of others, without the prohibition of which human society could not be maintained. Thus, human law prohibits murder, theft, and alike, right? I don't believe premarital sex falls into that category, right? We do believe in the agency of the human being, right? To choose the good. And that's one of the differences between Islam and Christianity, right? Is the emphasis on the individual choice, choosing the good, rather than the choice being forced, right? And it's a deeper theological conversation, but that's one of the big, like, of course, rather, of course, it is the good for people to abstain from premarital sex, right? But the thing is we can't legislate that for everybody to choose that, right? You begin to impede. Human society would not be able to function if we allowed murder, right, or theft, or any of these things to the hurt of others, like St. Thomas says. However, when we're looking at this, like, we have to look at how Thomas defines law, how Thomas kind of works with human positive law, and that is a fundamental, like, agency of the person as well. And I don't think that alcohol, I don't think, is a big of a deal, honestly. I do have a really big deal in removing people's ability to choose the good, and also imprisoning people for 7 years. Like, maybe they could go to confession and then, like, be unimprisoned.
Yeah, that seems fair. Joel, what do you think about this? Is this is it the problem here with the enforcement, or is it in the idea that they would go so far as to make this statement in general?
I think there's a challenge in the enforcement of it. I don't know how one does that. Obviously, with alcohol, that's much easier. You don't sell alcohol at the World Cup. You don't sell it other places. That's easy to do. And this is a reality for a lot of Middle Eastern countries already, where alcohol is not a part of the culture there, and it's not a part of, there's religious prohibitions against alcohol consumption. And quite honestly, at the World Cup, probably a safer space to not have a bunch of alcohol on sale. So this maybe is just a practical piece more than anything. I'll disagree with Marco, though. One, St. Thomas Aquinas ruined the church, and that's well established, so we all know that. So his quoting of that is likely invalid. I don't really believe that, but that we're not going to go down that rabbit hole here tonight. However, I think that when we travel abroad, we have to be aware of the laws and the restrictions of countries, even though they might seem wild. And yeah, is that hyper restrictive? I don't know how they enforce it at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. But a country does have a right, as you know, we teach in our faith holds that countries have a right to make their own laws, provided they don't enforce a moral wrong. And so while this maybe is hyper restrictive and doesn't give people the flexibility to choose the good, it also isn't imposing or forcing people to do something that is morally reprehensible. And therefore, if they want to enforce it, I believe that they can.
Interesting thoughts. Bridget, what do you think here? Does this mean that you're not going to attend the World Cup anymore in Qatar?
Oh, this
Canceling your
means I
plans?
am going, and I'm going to have a great time because people will be having fun, good, clean fun, my friend. So I say, do your thing. Let's go. But in all seriousness, I mean, enforcing is weird. Like, it's even weird to think about how you would do this. I could try not to go too deep when thinking about how you actually enforce this. But, you know, I'm with Joel. Like, it's the law of their land. You abide by what they're doing. This is what they're putting in place. And to go into the country, you have to know the laws. And as weird as it sounds, kudos to them for standing their ground at a world event like this and saying, this is who we are. These are the standards by which everyone lives. You're a visitor in our country. So these are the standards by which we're holding you to as well, whether you like it or not. So I don't mind this at all.
Yeah, but it's not the standards that the Qataris actually live to, though. Like that's the big issue. And I understand what Joel's saying, other than like his massive heresy that he espoused there, that St. Thomas ruined the church. But like there's a difference between can and should, right? And I think that has to be brought in. I think both of you are right in what you're saying too. Like there's a difference between the ideal of what a government ought do, should, and can. And I think that we're not talking about a Christian society here. We're talking about a society that is has similar moral norms, right? But has entirely different intent behind the moral norms, and that has to be taken into account. The other thing is, like, having spent time in the Middle East, there's alcohol. It's just not like typically legal for the residents to drink, but it's legal for the Christians and non-Muslims to drink. So it's interesting that it's being extended to everybody. I do think it's the safer thing to do. I mean, we don't sell alcohol at college football games. So yeah.
And I think you're taking it from like the government perspective. I'm saying if you're a visitor in that country and they say, hey, this is what's up, and you're not following those rules, if you're the one person.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. 100%. No, I totally agree. If that government
Like-
tells me not to do something, doesn't tell me to tie my left shoe, like I don't care what my like moral like reasoning behind, like I want to tie my left shoe. Not the time for me to take a moral stand. Their jails are really hot. All right. There's a lot of sun. They don't have a lot of air.
I better get extra points just for being so patient.
Yeah, no kidding. Jonathan, go ahead.
Oh, hey. You know what? Here's the thing. A country that is going to tell me that, I mean, I'm married, but to tell people that they can't have premarital sex or drink when 400 people have died constructing the stadiums in that country because, and worked under ridiculous like circumstances. That's I'm shocked that the World Cup is even still happening there. Like the ban's lame. How do you enforce it? Boring, by the way. Like if I can't drink at a World Cup game, I'm not going. Have you ever gone to a soccer game sober when everyone else is not? It's not fun. Or go to one where everyone else is, and like soccer is crazy. The fans go wild. They scream. They're jumping. It's going to be the most boring World Cup ever, which probably means that America will finally win, and no one's going to be there to see it.
Those are all great takes, you guys, and I'm sure we'll be able to cut all those apart and clip them together into one coherent, streamlined thought. Moving along to topic number 2, a year-long marriage prep. So this came out of the Vatican recently, in which the idea came up that perhaps marriage prep should be a year-long process instead of the 4 classes that they make you attend based on whatever parish you belong to, which it was put forward that perhaps that's not the most helpful in creating longevity and understanding to prepare people for the sacrament of marriage. Joel, we're going to start with you on this one. What are your thoughts on this? Good idea? Bad idea?
I have no doubt that there's a real nuanced answer I could give here, but I'm not going to. I think it's a great idea.
I'm not going to.
Marriage is again, let's talk about the sacrament of matrimony, which is what the church is talking about. I'll make a distinction between marriage as a legal institution and a sacrament, the sacrament of matrimony, to which the church is speaking. And I think if we hold that is something sacred, it's something important, it's something to be respected, then it makes sense that we would want to prepare 2 people to engage in that sacrament in a way that is healthy and that has been discerned well. If also, because we teach in the church that marriage is indissoluble until death, till death do you part. So we want to make sure people are ready for that. Now, the content of that is where I would call some things into question. I would love that content, since it's year-long, to include actual marriage counseling with an actual marriage counselor who's actually certified in therapy. I would love that to include financial counseling and how we set a budget, because finances are one of the top reasons for divorce. I think it's either the number 1 or 2 reason, and infidelity is up there too. So you either are bad with your finances or you're bad with staying committed to your partner. And those are the things that will end your marriage. I'd love to see that in there. If we're going to make it a year long, put in some of these practical things, but I think that preparation could actually be an absolute gift that would strengthen marriages, with the caveat that you got to do it right. But do I like the idea of year-long marriage prep? Absolutely.
Ooh. Good take. Well done. Bridget, what are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely not. I am like, no way.
That's how I know Bridget has like a really emphatic take. Absolutely not.
If you want a way for people not to be married in the church, this is it. Like this, people who are on the fence about getting married in the church or not, if you say, okay, your preparation is about to start for a full year, I mean, what are we setting people up for? More people living together, more premarital sex. Like, we're not preparing people in the way that I think this is trying to accomplish. Like, I love what Joel said about putting the right people in place to prepare them. I think prolonging the process is just going to make people irritated. It's just going to prolong some of the not bad things, but like poor teaching that they already get through marriage prep. And I can only speak from my experience. Like, I did 6 months of marriage prep. They fast tracked us, which feels so silly to say because it was 6 months, but I felt very prepared. We had wonderful in-depth conversations. We went through a sponsor couple, and someone in chat asked, what you go through during marriage prep. You talk to a marriage prep person with at your particular parish. So they kind of walk you through the whole process and get everything set up. You usually go to a class, and then after that, you can either have a sponsor couple, or you can go to like a retreat with a lot of different couples where they continue to shape you and prepare you in different ways for the sacrament. I like how Joel put in there that it's the sacrament of matrimony. And then you have other like little preps for like natural family planning and things like that. Nothing with finances. You speak to a counselor one time for 1 hour, and they go through like this random test that tells you all the places where you're strong and where you need to work on. And honestly, like some of those places that you have to work on, you'll just work on throughout your whole entire marriage. But anyway, I think prolonging the process is only going to make it more difficult. And if we keep putting in roadblocks and more difficulties for people to be a part of the fold and to become Catholic and see the beauty of our church, I wish we had beautiful teaching that met people where they are, that didn't make it become this year-long process of, I don't even know what they would fill the space with, honestly.
Yeah,
I bet they'd fill it with planning their wedding, which already takes over a year. Have you tried to do to fast track a wedding? I'll just say that, like, people aren't booking venues 6 months out. You got to be in like 18 months. People are already planning a wedding. Give them the year-long prep. But
here's the thing. So they're prepping that wedding, and they're having that wedding, right, at a different venue. The church is the formality of it, even for them already. And the big, or not even the ceremony, the big event is at this venue. So already the year-long thing is not working. So why make this like a rule? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's fair. So John, so Joel has brought up the
don't worry, I'll go last.
The thought for you. Well, that's the rotation. That's how it works. So Joel has brought up the thought for deeper content. And Bridget has brought up the idea of the time, potentially being wasted. So do you think that there is something in the middle, like is really the year-long marriage prep about it being denser, more intentional material that gets covered? Do you think that's the design of saying a year?
It turns out that Joel and Bridget are both correct.
That's true.
If you can believe that. They are, for different reasons. But here's the thing, when you try to use a program mentality for anything in the church and then expect not just America, but the rest of the world to just follow it with their different cultures and ways that they do marriage and all that kind of stuff, it just is a little annoying to me. I don't know. I think there are recommendations. It's not like this mandate that Pope Francis put down. At least that's what I read today. But a year is way too long. You can have chastity, or you can have a year-long marriage prep. All right. Like, if you got all these, 30-year-olds who are finally dating for the first time, they finally found the person, they're Catholic, they know they want to get married, and now you're going to make them wait another year. It's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. But really the ultimate problem is just that parishes are not equipped to walk with people at most stages of their life. And marriage is one of those stages. And so until we find a way to equip parishes with the resources, the people, the missionary disciples to walk with people at every stage of their life, there's no program that you can really do. Do we need everything Joel said? Yeah. How is that going to happen? I have no idea. But it's kind of wild times. A year is crazy. I got married in 6 months after dating for 3 years, and we dated way too long. We should have proposed 2 years earlier. And I didn't. It all worked out, but just JD Flynn said it best. If you love someone and you have similar beliefs and you're semi-attracted to them and you're both Catholic, get married. Don't overcomplicate it.
If they're in major debt, don't worry about it.
Jump right in. All right, Matthew Marcolini, give us.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to answer Bridget's question, yeah, don't worry about it, because at the end of the day, like, most people are going to go into major debt anyway, so you're just getting it done beforehand. right? You have something not to do already. No, I think everybody's wrong. Except for me. I'm always right. Along with St. Thomas.
That's what Liz says.
So no, I mean, I really do agree with everybody, but I do think the only people that this hurts are really pretty much Orthodox Catholics that are getting engaged and married in under a year, typically, right? A lot of those people are getting married and getting engaged and then married 6 months after. Like my brother-in-law he'll be engaged for 7 months, right? When he gets married in October. And then like my wife and I were a little different. We were engaged for 14 months, but like we waited the whole time. So I don't really accept the chastity argument. But I do think the thing that we really have to think about is the prudence of teaching, right? Because we don't want it to just be easy just to do, right? Like if we want people to take this seriously, it has to be something that we take seriously in our own parishes first and foremost, right? And then in our diocese, and then in our archdiocese, and then in Rome. But like the thing is like one of the, like Bridget was saying, the idea that the church is the formality. No, like the church is everything, right? Like my wife and I had to my wife and I had to get married legally before we got really married, right? We didn't live together, we didn't sleep together, we didn't do any of that stuff because we weren't married, right? Like it was just illegal. That was the legal formality for us. I felt so bad for the justices of the peace who like tried to make it super sweet and romantic and like read this beautiful, like it's actually a very beautiful like physics take on the universe and marriage. And I like she asked me, it's like, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? And I looked at Justice Peace and I looked at Liz and was like, yes. And then it was even worse when Liz did it because she sounded angry, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's something we really have to think about. Like, what is it? Where's the prudential judgment in it? Because I think, and where's the middle ground? Right. And the virtue is always in the middle ground of all those things. Because we don't want to make it too difficult and you have to jump through too many hoops with all these different requirements and a bureaucratic process. I'm convinced the third circle of hell is saved for bureaucrats. Secondly, we do want people to take it seriously though, like Joel's talking about, right? Like people do need this formation. People do need financial counseling. Most people should be going to should be going to counseling already in their relationship, right? Especially in this modern day and age. And like our marriage prep that we went through, we didn't have a sponsor couple. We had a priest that we knew walk us through the focus test, which is that weird test you were talking about. In our diocese, we had to do a 3-day retreat, which was the long version. And that was it, right? We got to meet with a counselor then. We did our diocese does the financial, like 4 hours of like a financial talk in some of the retreats. My wife and I actually do some of the marriage prep retreats, but it's really a primer to make people more interested and to go deeper with their future spouse. Because I do think that the answer is, right, is some sort of answer that has to do at the lowest level of the parish, and even more so at the community and individual level. Like it has to be individuals making the choice for their good, right? And like, because we've made it in such a way in the kind of the annulment crisis that we're going through, right? That like you read the Roman Rota, which is you read all this stuff, and it's like, how can anybody consent to this? Like, how do you know? Like, well, how do you actually consent? Which for everybody who's not Catholic, that's a fundamental principle of Catholic marriage is freely consenting, right? I mean, things are so complicated, so convoluted, right, on the bureaucratic side, that it's not helpful to the individual. But then on the opposite side, right, at most parishes, it's so easy just to be like, show up and be like, okay, you get a letter, right? Do the thing, show up to a couple meetings, and you're good to go. It's like baptism class, right? It's just merely a formality in the grand scheme of things. But I think the sacrament of baptism is a much different situation than the sacrament of marriage. But yeah, I don't know the answer. I don't know.
Do I get 3 turns next time to say I don't know the answer?
I'll give you all the points based on you being able to connect all of the sacraments that exist in the church together into that conversation.
I did not mention holy orders. I did not mention extreme unction.
That's okay. Let's move on. But I liked it. Bridget, You came up with this one. In the world, do we read the full story or do we just get our news from the headlines? And quick little follow-up question, is it often even worth reading the story? Because sometimes it totally ruins the headline as you being able to use it as evidence for what you were right about.
That's
Go
a
ahead.
wonderful twist. Confession time. When I'm in a hurry, but I want to know what's going on, I am like headlines. I try to skim all the headlines just to be informed of what's going on. Sometimes they're very descriptive. Sometimes they're descriptive in all the wrong ways. And sometimes they don't even really say what actually happened in the story. So ones that, if I'm in a hurry, ones that I find to be interesting, I like click on and I'll read through it. But if I'm really like a time crunch, I have to just go through the headlines. But I say that, and I am a paper newspaper person. I have a paper newspaper that I open and read. Online news still, I don't know. Maybe it's because
Like that
I'm
you
an
touch
old
with
soul.
your hands? That,
That's
like,
what we're gonna get you
exists
as a
in the
Christmas
world?
present. We're gonna get you a year-long subscription to the Wall Street Journal.
What's that like?
It's sometimes messy.
Is it when your
but
Kindle's out of batteries? Is that why you're...
I don't own a Kindle.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I'm so non-digital, which is weird because my job is so digital. But
But
yeah,
that's fair.
all that
So
to
in
say,
all honesty, you would say that you, like, in a time crunch, you get your news from the headlines versus reading the full story, unless you're really sucked into the topic.
exactly, which makes me feel terrible because I study journalism, but
All right.
life happens.
That's fair. That's good, and I like it. All right. Well, John has an affinity for Twitter, so he knows he just reads the headlines. Do you want us to skip you, John, or do you want to expound on that a little bit?
No, I don't speak on something without reading the full story. But I certainly don't read every story that I see. But I like my news on Twitter. You're right. I'll check Twitter, and I am more inclined. Sometimes there are writers that do this. They'll write an article and they'll put it on whatever it is and their site, and then they'll also just long tweet it and on a thread of like 30 tweets. And I love reading stories through Twitter threads. That is my favorite way to get news. I absolutely love it. And yeah, go Twitter.
That's fair. Marco, full story or just a headline? Be honest.
Full story. Shoulders revolt. Twitter is the worst place to get your news.
Twitter's the worst place to get your news.
Everyone that writes news, literally every person who writes news is on Twitter.
John,
Literally every one of
you're-
them.
That's great.
Every news article you read, the guy's on Twitter.
John, that's great, but you're using a platform that is manipulated, and we know it's manipulated to push stories that are going to enrage people so they stay longer on the platform. If it was a neutral platform, that'd be great, but it's not, right? And this is one of the fundamental issues driving this exact question, right? Because people are putting the most incendiary things in 100 or 280 characters or less, right? Or however many characters it is now. I know they increased it. They're putting that on there, right, to get people to click on their thing, to drive revenue for themselves and for the businesses. And that's fine, right? But we just have to know what we're doing, and we're not going to change it, because what people are doing, especially when people are going to Twitter, right, is they're not looking for the actual nuance. They're not looking for the actual take. They're looking for something to dunk on somebody else of the opposing view. That's what they're doing. Like 90% of people who are and John, you are probably vastly somebody that does this more than everybody else, who actually goes and reads the stuff, right? But the vast majority of people are doing it just to find something that confirms their bias, right? I'm saying you're doing the right thing, they're doing the wrong thing. That confirms their bias, and they move on to the next thing, right? Like if we really want to have real conversations, right, where Joel hates St. Thomas and I love St. Thomas, right? That's a really nuanced conversation.
You guys should do it on Twitter.
If we that'd be awful.
Amen.
Literally the worst thing in the world. It's a terrible idea, and I never want to hear you say it again. No, I'm kidding. No, but like if we really want to have a conversation about that, there's an actual the idea is like to find that somebody has a point in what they're making, and they have a reason for believing what they're believing and they're saying. I think that all of these things, the full stories versus headline world we live in, right, is contributing to the downfall of the American society as a whole.
That's fair. We're kind of doing it to ourselves in a lot of ways as well.
Absolutely.
Joel, what do you think here? You seem to be someone who's very well read.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, for the record, I don't hate St. Thomas Aquinas. I mean,
No. I'm just ripping off
brilliant.
it. I'm
He's
just
a
ripping
wonderful
off it.
man. I feel like mysticism in the church took a dive with the rise of rationalism, which St. Thomas ushered in. God bless him. People just took it too far.
Father
Now,
John
so talk
Harden
about
would agree with you.
mysticism.
All right.
I don't know that I should even say this on this live stream, but I'm going to. I came across a TikTok account with a guy who's a time traveler, and he is here from the future.
Yep.
And he just kind of tells you what's going to happen. So I don't read the headlines or the stories anymore
Because you already
I just
know.
follow this guy.
Because you already
Yeah,
know.
and so I shouldn't. I mean, it's weird, but he's just saying.
And
him out.
it would have held more mysticism, that TikTok account, if not for St. Thomas Aquinas.
I can't say that for sure, but
Okay.
I can say
All
that
right.
there's going to be some very big announcements
Coming
about
up
UFOs
soon.
in the next
Yep,
couple
that's
of months.
soon. That's fair. Well, this kind of rolls into our next topic, which is the Catholic news cycle, good or bad, specifically in terms of evangelization, right? So the way that Catholic news works right now, or as we jokingly refer to it sometimes, Catholic Twitter, help or hurt evangelization within the church. John, I think you're first on this one.
It is both good and bad.
As you could say about many things.
And you are neither hot nor cold.
Oh no! Oh no! Do not spit me out.
John is now a philosopher.
No, but here's the thing. It's good. It is good, and I'll explain. It's
Thank you for laughing
good.
at my joke.
It's good because someone like JD Flynn, who I've mentioned often on the shows, is a good friend. Maybe good friends too far for now, but a friend, and someone that I cherish a lot because we've connected online and we've connected via Twitter, and we DM about different things. And like I worked in the church for 15 years and saw a lot of stuff that really shook me to my core. A lot of scandal, just it's crazy stuff. And to have someone like JD who reports on it every single day from all over the world, and then live out his like holy Catholic life still, was like the strength I needed to be like, if he can do it, so can I. And so it's good, I think, when you have good and holy people, sharing what's happening in the church. But it's bad when a bunch of people just see Catholic infighting or everyone dunking on each other and everyone's doing this for the headlines. It just makes us look absolutely crazy, especially online. And I know Twitter is like a small space that not everyone's on and does not really represent a majority of the people and necessarily what they think. But I see it. I think it's really, really bad online right now. And it's dividing people to go more towards one side or another and making people lose interest. And so in that way, I think it's not doing a good job evangelizing.
Yeah, that's fair. Marco, what do you think here?
I think John's. I think John's right. I mean, I think that people like JD Flynn and John, right? Honestly, redeem these platforms, in a lot of ways. Like there can be a lot of good done on them, but in so many ways, it requires virtuous men and women, right? And it requires the virtuous man to be the one doing it, man, like as universal. Because if it's not, then like our pride gets in the way, our ego gets in the way. Plug Mr. Joel Stepanek's book, right? Humility is needed in these things. And yeah, I mean, I have such a frustration with it. Like when you go into these theological discussions about anything, like it's so frustrating because you cannot, there's no discourse that can take place about topics, right? Like and about mysticism versus rationalism, about like any of these things that can take place in a non-long form version. So if we're talking about Twitter and everything, there's that. The Catholic news cycle, I mean, I don't know. I think it's good for us to know, right? I think it's we can't stick our heads in the sand about it. But at the same time, I do believe the world would be better off if less people read encyclicals and less people knew what was going on in Rome. I personally call it the peasant pill. I'm going to pray my rosary. I'm going to read my St. Thomas and St. Augustine and read my Joel Stepanek's book. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to live virtuously. I'm going to go to mass. I'm going to fail utterly and go to confession. But I can't allow what's happening in Rome and the actual Game of Thrones that exists going on there affect my everyday faith, because these are men. Like the church is perfect because it's divine. The men that make it up are not.
Right.
And that's what we have to remember. And that's what this Catholic news cycle is talking about, the men that are not,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's what you have to remember when looking at these things. The only people I read are The Pillar, honestly, which is JD Finn's thing. And frankly, I get most of my news from John because he apparently knows about everything 3 days before everybody else. That's why Twitter is apparently okay. And then, but otherwise, like for me, with somebody that like does like get really angry at injustice and seeing these things when you have Cardinals having massive bacchanals and properties and investing in movies they shouldn't be investing in, and $1 billion missing from the Vatican Bank. That's going to be a thing that I probably shouldn't have said, but
that's probably
like,
a good thing to get flagged though in the world of Catholic news cycle.
Yeah, I mean, but like that's what I mean. Like you look at these things, like how do you not become black-pilled, as the kids say, as the youths say, right? But you pray your rosary, you live the virtuous life, and you know it's good to be informed. It's good to know what's going on. But it doesn't really affect me and my faith.
That's fair. Speaking of knowing what's going on, Joel has a new TikTok account that knows the future. So Joel, lay it down. What's coming? What do we need to watch out for in the Catholic
news cycle? When is Pope Francis resigning? Pope Francis.
2023, midway through the year, shortly after aliens appear. And
dude,
it's wild, y'all. Just buckle up. It's wild.
Megyn Kelly's reporting on it now, so I mean,
yeah,
it's going really well.
It's happening. I would challenge the idea of evangelization. And here's what, like, as far as Catholic news, I don't think people outside of our bubble see it. Like, when's the last time you just stumbled onto Lutheran Twitter or like Muslim Twitter? I'm sure these things exist.
Muslim Twitter exists.
Yeah, dude, 100%. We were joking about this ahead of the show, but like, I think Bridget was saying, oh, that person just, my algorithm just doesn't show me that person. And the algorithm doesn't show you these things. And so I don't know that people outside of our bubble are stumbling into even Catholic news sites and saying, oh my goodness, like what is going on here? I was, checking out the faith, and then I came across Catholic Twitter, and this is wild. Maybe that happens once in a while. I think, and this has been said a couple of times, the challenge is this is more divisive to us internally. And I think that becomes a problem. And maybe that's where it affects evangelization, is how we live joy externally. And Marco hit it on the head. If it distracts us from prayer, oh, I'm so angry at this cardinal. And are there things that the news is good for? Yes. True news holds us accountable. And that's what we need. We need good news sites that hold people accountable. That's what the news in America is supposed to do. That's why we have freedom of the press, so they can hold people accountable. And I think we need freedom of the press in the same way in the Catholic Church for that reason. That said, I think that beyond that, it makes us divisive. It makes us angry. And if it impacts evangelization in any way, it's because we're sending bitter people who become bitter online out into the world to be bitter people around individuals who are like, I have no clue what you're talking about. And they're like, oh, did you see this thing? Oh my gosh. And be like, what? Why do you keep talking about birds and cardinals? Or the football team? Stop it. And if there's an impact, I think that's where we feel it.
That's fair. That's fair. And you did a spot-on impression of me, by the way. Bridget.
You needed to be a little angrier.
Bridget,
a little bit more in pain.
Your voice. You have to growl a little bit, Joel.
A little bit of more of an undercoating of
next time
really
I think I'll get
You're
it. Next time
really
I think
close.
I'll get it.
It's gotten good after a short 10 weeks. Bridget, what do you think here? Good or bad for this?
Oh, I think it's bad. No question in my mind. I think it's bad. I try, I read the news, the regular news headlines only, because I read so much Catholic news, and I try to stay totally even, like across the board. I try to read things that I agree with, but that I disagree with, subscribe to different publications, get their newsletters, so that you're fully informed, right? And you see everything. So maybe I just see too much, but I hope that it doesn't affect my joy outwardly. Like, I love the points that Joel made about that is like the nuance to this whole thing, right? Is what he's speaking to. But I think it's bad, because what if someone does stumble upon that and this is what they see, or this is what they read, or these are our headlines? So, I'm happy if it's like sometimes has like a joyful story at the bottom, but we're supposed to be above the culture a little bit. And I think we are supposed to hold people to task, but there are lots of stories in the Catholic Church that aren't being told because we're telling these stories that are sad or mean or terrible or awful, like, of course we do need to hold people to task, but we need to share more stories of the people. We need to share more human interest stuff. We need to really feed into like a good, well-written, maybe opinion piece about a thing, which is honestly really hard to find like in a Catholic news publication. But my prayer is always, even though I think it's bad, I pray that the Holy Spirit takes that and does what it did to Jonathan. Like he saw someone who was doing his thing and like showing the news in the way that he knew how and trying his best. And it spoke to him in the way that only the Holy Spirit can honestly like shape to speak to someone. Or I think someone in chat just said they saw someone online do a Latin mass and that's how they decided to come back to the church. Like that's the Holy Spirit, because that's how you stumble upon that stuff. So even though I think the Catholic news cycle needs a lot of work and it's not very good, the Holy Spirit can use all that to inspire someone or to call them to the church in ways that, you know, we can't comprehend.
Yeah, that's fair. I totally agree with you on that one. And I'm going to propose this. I hate the algorithm. I think it's a disaster, and it's great for echo chambers and terrible for actual, like, an informed electorate. So I'm jumping on the first social media that says we are going to show you the opposite. You're going to get a 1-to-1 ratio. You like this thing, we're going to show you something that's the opposite. You can shape it however you want, but holy cow, is there just an abundance of like, I'm right because I went to imright.com and now I send $10 to imright.com every month and I'm still right, it turns out, because I'm right.
Guys, I have our first topic for next time. Why the American experiment is failing, as dictated by Matt McClure.
No problem. I can do a tight 5 on it. Public funds for religious ed. So it just came out recently. There's a Supreme Court ruling that public funds, tax dollars, should be allowed for a school of your choosing, even if it is of a religious institution. And I think this is one that probably there's a lot of agreement within this group, although I think there's probably some nuance in it. Marco, we're back to you to start this one off.
Well, the thing to remember about this case first, so this is kind of my explanation of the case before I actually go into my answer here. This is why I need a big whiteboard with yarn attaching everything to a gigantic question mark in the middle, right? That's why I wear the Hawaiian shirt. So the case is about people in Maine, specifically rural Maine, where there are not public schools, right? So they're paying taxes into the school system and have no way to actually receive those taxes as mandated what they're for, right? Before, with the Blaine amendments, which have their seed in specifically anti-Catholicism undertones, as it were, they were not allowed. It was not allowed to be used for any quote unquote sectarian education, right? Now, I mean, the issue is that in some areas the only schools that are there are the Catholic school, right? So what's the answer, right? Do you drive 2 hours to your nearest public school? That's a complete. So you're discriminating against somebody because they believe in something, right? And I think that fundamentally the idea of school choice is a good thing. That's really the underscoring topic, right? Because it leads to more involvement from the parents and a variety of other good things. But we really have to understand where this conversation starts with, and it's specifically in a rural area where there's no public options other than there's no schooling options other than the private Catholic school.
Yeah, I think that's a fair distinction. Joel, what do you think about this? Good idea, bad idea?
I think it might be a bad idea. And maybe I'm going to be on the fringe. But you know what? There's always nuance, but that's not where we're going tonight. Here's where I would caution on this particular thing. I think in cases like Marco pointed out, there is a strong case to be made why this is a good thing. There's no other public schools in the area. People are paying taxes and are unable to take advantage of what their tax dollars are paying for, which is public education. And so if there are other schools in the area, making them accessible to those families, absolutely critical. Education is a fundamental right that people, as a society, we need to provide. Now, here's where I think things could become a slippery slope. Even if you had protections against what public funds might force some school to do, because that's always my concern. Once we start paying public funds into private institutions, down the road, we can suddenly become beholden to those things where new legislation is passed that says, yeah, you can keep these funds. We're not taking them from you, but you need to do this thing or that thing, or you need to abide by this federal law that exists to continue to take advantage of that. And a similar situation existed with highway funding and the legal drinking age, several years ago, which kind of twists the arm of people to do what people want them to do. But I actually think that there's something that could happen before that, which is the influx of people into Catholic institutions who are now able to go there because it's a good school, because it has a high college acceptance rate, because they have a particular program, and those people are not interested in the faith-based aspect of that school. And we know, and this has happened before, when you have people get into institutions like that, where they are no longer interested in the faith-based mission of that institution, but on the merits of that institution, it degrades it from the inside out. Because people, again, even though those people might not be paying for the school, the state is still funding those students to be there, and the school is going to accommodate the desires of those families and those parents, as maybe they put pressure to say, listen, we made a school choice to come here because you had great academics. Our kid doesn't want to do mass every week. And suddenly Catholic identity gets watered down. Initially, it could be a good thing. Long term, I don't know, it could degrade the institution itself, and we ought to be careful what we wish for.
Agreed. Bridget, would you care to disagree with Joel?
This topic is just so difficult for me. I don't know why it's not like getting into my brain exactly what's happening here. But the one thing that I do think, though, is that why not? Because it seems like it might be a good idea to give it a try. And my question is, like, are these families zoned for Catholic schools, or is it just that's just the nearest thing and it's easier?
No, so this specific case that we're talking about, like where this question comes from, is there's no other public
option.
There's no other option other than the religious school.
Then I think it's great because it exposes people who maybe would never be a part of Catholic education to that. And, Joel's right, that might be one thing, but on the other side, they get exposed to those things that they've never seen before. They get to go to the mass, and of course parents are going to squawk or whatever, but we all know that children still witness this stuff, and children sometimes love the beauty of the tradition and like what happens when they're at mass. Like, children really enjoy that kind of stuff. So I think it's kind of different. And it seemed like the law at first was weird anyway, with saying like you can't teach religion, but you can like be a religious school. Like, you guys could probably explain that a little better than me, but it was a weird law to begin with. So it seems like they're like filling out the law to make it kind of like make more sense in a way. So I think it's fine. And I guess we'll see what happens in 5 years.
I guess we'll see what happens in 5 years or sooner if Joel shares that TikTok account. Jonathan, what do you think here?
I only have two thoughts.
Ever?
The first is that there is not a thing in the church outside of the devil himself doing more harm to Catholicism than K through 12 Catholic schools in America.
100.
That's one of the hottest takes.
I legitimately believe that many, I won't say most, but I'm close to saying most, are doing more harm than good. I really do believe that, and it's a whole nother thing. So that said, like, now, okay, great, let's make them awesome. Let's make Catholic schools a place where if a bunch of people start going, that evangelization happens. I spoke at that one in Tampa Bay. It's shocker. It's called Jesuit High School in Tampa, and it's the most.
This is actually shocking.
It's the most orthodox, like, evangelistic high school I've ever seen. 30 to 50 baptisms every year from students who go there for sports or academics and then have conversions. That is what should be happening at our Catholic schools. I've only heard of a few in our country that are doing that. I'm sure there's hopefully a few more, but now's the time. Build a bunch and make them awesome. And as far as the law goes, a great quote from Nicole Garnett: "The opinion cements the core First Amendment principle that the Constitution requires government neutrality and prohibits hostility toward religious believers and institutions." So it's a good thing.
I would agree with Joel, just to end this really quick, if I thought most Catholic schools were still Catholic. As a product of going through Catholic school, my public school I went to for high school was more Catholic than the private Catholic school I went through K through 8. Now I'm getting pretty far away from K through 8, so maybe there's been a renaissance. I just have my first child now. You guys all have school-age children, so you definitely know more about this than I do. But from my own experience, from what I've seen, the other people's experiences that I know, I mean, I didn't even learn the difference between a mortal and venial sin I didn't know I had to go to mass on Sundays, right? And I was a Catholic kid. I mean, I think that the damage that we've done to the Catholic schools, I mean, started well before Vatican II in the 40s, right? But that's a whole nother conversation. Joel does I think have a good point, but I think it has to be caveated on the schools having authentic Catholic identity. Some do, some don't. A lot don't.
Fair. Yeah. I'm going to backdoor the wrap up and just say that I think that there's a massive gap between the education that's happening at home and the education that's happening at schools. And I think that the absence of solid Catholic schools is the absence of solid Catholic families. There's a Sriracha shortage. Who cares? Joel, you go first.
That was a hot take.
That was really hot.
Wow.
Just Sriracha.
Just to move right in.
Yeah, usually I'm surprised. Usually there's some more introduction there, and clearly you're not a fan of the hot sauce. Which
Oh no, I don't
That's how
mind
Joel
it.
thinks up his answers.
I don't
is
mind
during
it,
your
but
introduction.
let me do
yeah,
this
I'm
really
like,
quick.
well, usually there's something. I'm like, whoa.
Let me say
really
this.
hopped
Let
into
me
that one.
backpedal and say this. Of all the things that there are currently shortages on, specific types of hygiene products, baby formula, water in lots of parts of the world, we picked Sriracha. So what do you think?
Well, I have to wonder what is causing a Sriracha shortage, like of something that is so simple, so basic as far as ingredients, which are already mass produced, GMO, out the window.
It's the
Why
drought
are we
in
suddenly?
Mexico.
What'd you say?
Drought in Mexico is causing
Drought
the
in
shortage
Mexico.
of the
Okay.
specific pepper that
Peppers.
Sriracha is made from.
Okay, see, there you go. And I think therein lies why we should care about a Sriracha shortage. If there is a shortage of Sriracha, this is going to have implications down the board as far as a drought goes. And quite honestly, the truth is this, and I don't know if I should be saying this, but in the year 2024, Sriracha becomes what we run our vehicles on. And it is a landmark moment, but it is being set up by forces right now, deep inside the Vatican, no less, that are trying to
Thank you,
short
Megyn
us
Kelly.
of this particular product because we know down the road we're going to need it to run our cars. It's more efficient, it's biofuel, and without the Sriracha now we're not going to be able to get there. So we actually need to stand up in this moment, and whatever Sriracha you have sitting in your house, you need to send it specifically to your local Lutheran church, because the Lutherans, surprisingly, are the ones really working and combating some of these
Missouri
forces. And
Synod
actually,
only.
this leads towards reunion within the Lutheran and the Catholic Church, but that doesn't happen in the year 2025. I shouldn't have said all of this to you because it may have forked the timeline. Hopefully not. Okay,
No,
that's all I have.
It has for sure. But I just want to go on record right now, and just like put it out there, and just to Joel, are you okay? Like, are you really okay? And also, I should apologize because all of that was probably correct, and now I feel nervous about my potential future.
Just get some Sriracha.
Just get some Sriracha. Bridget, take it away.
I'm freaking out. I just ran out of Sriracha at home. And I was telling my in-laws, like my brother-in-law told me about this. I literally put my plate down and went, what? And I was like, okay, well, I got to go to the store to stock up. But then I'm part of the problem, right? Because there has to be enough for everybody to go around. I should be fine with my one bottle, but I need to stock up.
yeah,
I'm
there's
getting
a
shortage,
shortage,
all right?
Bridget,
I'm getting
you
mine. I don't care
selfish
about Jim
person.
Bob. I don't care about Jim Bob.
There's a shortage, and now we know that our cars are going to run on it. So how dare you hoard the world's most lack of abundant resource?
Well, you know, Sriracha is close to the heart, and the pepper, I didn't realize it was the pepper. And we know that a lot of the peppers that are grown in Mexico are just such good peppers and some of the best food that we eat. So hopefully the drought doesn't last long, and hopefully these peppers come back. And yes, this is a serious, serious thing for me, especially. Nobody else in my family or that I know cares except for me.
That's fair and legitimate. John, why be concerned about Sriracha when we could replace it with Hot Charlie's?
Well, you just stole my take, and I hate you for that.
No!
I told you I had a prop, hadn't even used it yet, and now we're fighting.
Okay, it was an accident. Great
So,
minds,
sir-
Jonathan. Great
It's
minds.
true. So Sriracha is objectively the best widely available, well, used to be widely available hot sauce on the market. It's delicious. It's one of the things that Joel actually is one of the main, if not the main reason why I really got into spicy food. He took me to a couple different places when we lived nearby each other in Manitowoc. I would get spicier and spicier chili every time. And I ended up developing this love for hot stuff. And then Sriracha was one of the first things I had common in the house to try to work the tolerance up. But along comes Hot Charlie's.
Charlie's.
You know what he said? He basically said, man, what if you could combine like the flavors of a hot sauce and some garlic? Why would you not want those two things together? And so he has a garlic-based hot dust and hot sauce that I eat every single day, and you can use code Blevins15 for 15% off your order today, my friends. Fear not, Hot Charlie's to the rescue.
Wow. I really ruined that one, and we're gonna have to have more detailed meetings before the show starts. I'm really sorry.
Totally fine.
Really blew it. Marco, quick, erase the last 25 seconds of me talking. You're muted.
Sorry, I didn't
No,
mean
it's
to mute
okay. I'll
myself.
cut that out.
Great. I pressed space on accident. So guess what? There was almost a massive avocado crisis. At one point in the last 6 months, we had a week of avocados left. Partly because of massive organized crime. This is where I need my gigantic whiteboard.
Organized crime.
No. Seriously, this is a real thing. It's a real thing. It's documented in multiple places. The cartels
Crime-acado.
literally were stealing avocados and limes, right? And that's what was forcing the prices up. You had no idea. There were Mexican restaurants where people couldn't get their guac. All right, like there was no tableside guac at one almost, but this didn't happen, right?
So elitist.
No, but it's so true.
It was the idea that millennials would revolt. Is that what they're doing? We'll destroy the United States by causing millennials to rip it apart because they won't have their tableside guac.
The white folk will pay whatever they can for the avocados. And the culture's like, no. Why would I pay $10 for an avocado? And all
As
of
the avocado toast
millennials
goes,
are
so
like,
goes the
you know
country.
what? I need some avocado toast. I'm going to spend $45 on it. Anywho, all of that happened and you had no idea, right? I think the Sriracha shortage, like many of these shortages, people are seeing things way far off in the distance that may never come to be, right? And that's a huge thing. The minute there's a tahini spice, right, shortage, if that happens, I'll go to war. I'll go to war. If that happens, I will go to war. If Hot Charlie's goes extinct, I'll go to war. Tahini and Hot Charlie's are my two favorite spices on the face of the planet. If that happens, then we know it's over. The American experiment has failed. We all should go home and hug our wives and children, our husbands in Bridget's case, and just like lay in the bed and wait for the end.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen until 2027.
which half the world can't do during the World Cup.
Right. Can't. Yeah, that's disallowed. All right, you guys. Well, this is a great season finale of Around the Halo. I appreciate each and every one of you, and Jonathan Blevins and Matthew Marcolini for getting this little Flower Media thing started. This has been tremendous fun. All the support from Mac Studios at UST has been amazing, and we appreciate both you and Darnell and all of the guests that you provided to the show over the course of the season. That's pretty excellent. And Joel, as always, my friend, we're just so on the same page that I feel like we need a new host next season so that someone else can win. But Joel now gets 30 seconds to talk about anything he wants as the winner of this episode of Around the Halo, in which I really hope it's just more future predictions. Go.
I thought about how to wrap up this season, and I don't know who needs to hear this right now on the stream, but I'm just going to say it. And if anything changes your life after these 10 episodes, I hope that this is it. These 11 episodes, if you're in line at the drive-thru and the person in front of you pays for what you got there, your drink, your food, whatever, usually it's at a Starbucks, you don't have to pay for the next person. In fact, it's a mercy to not do that, to break that cycle and to just say thank you. Thank you for giving this gift to me. And no, I don't want to pay it forward, because you've just liberated everybody else in that line from the uncertainty of what the next order might cost, and you will bless them. I don't know who needs to hear this, but I'm telling you that you are liberated, friend.
It's amazing.
You are free.
That is amazing. Now, Joel, not to totally piggyback off of you, but I did have this experience a couple of months ago where just to mess with those people, I paid for the next 2 people in line.
Ooh.
Okay? Just to absolutely be like, what are you going to do now? What are you
You're
gonna
like
do
the
now? You
Joker
can't-
of drive-thrus.
I know, it's insane. I'm a bad person. I'm going to go to confession as soon as we finish up this episode. All right, everybody, this has been Around the Halo. We're going to be back in some undisclosed amount of time for our next season. We have a bunch of stuff coming up, and we thought we'd take some time off to spend revamping and adjusting and making some improvements for the next season of Around the Halo. But I would declare it an unmitigated success, and I think all of our guests would agree. And if they disagree, they're not coming back anyway, so it's not that big a deal. All right, everybody. Do you want to go Around the Halo one more time and say thank you to chat? I think we probably should. Actually, let's just do it all together. Thanks, chat. We love you guys.
Thank you. We love
appreciate
you.
it. You guys are great. This has been super fun, and we'll see
be
you
back.
next
So glad my
season.
wife showed up for the final episode.
We love you, Liz.
Liz.